Watch this. No way!
Hello and welcome back to another episode of the Cookie Jar Golf Podcast, brought to you in partnership with FootJoy. I am Tom Mills, and today I'm joined by Sam Williams.
Thomas, thank you for having me.
And Bruce Fitzpatrick.
Hello. Good to be with you both.
Gentlemen, welcome.
Thank you. Can we talk a little bit about The Office?
Yes, indeed. My father-in-law has been around and doing it while I've been in the Carolinas. Good, isn't
What
it?
I'll say about your father-in-law's DIY abilities is they look far better than mine.
I'd probably agree with that.
Most people's to be fair, but yeah, I mean that's quite a big old screen you've got on there. That's very
That's for the old office.
huh?
That one's from the old office. Remember?
What is it about like waiting rooms nowadays that have just like, disproportionately large screens?
Mm.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of
It's
them.
like, you need a 65-inch TV to watch a bit of BBC News before you're shown into your meeting.
I think
They were selling one in Walmart, weren't they, Tom, for about $300 the other day?
the Walmart was a mind-blowing experience. We're not going to get into the America stuff on this pod, but they are large places.
Did you see any guns in there?
No.
I saw far less guns and gun crime than I thought I would. I thought I'd go to America and literally everyone on the street would be like double cocked, like arms in the
Yeah,
air.
but Walmart have a big gun catalogue, do they not? I thought that
Do
might have
they?
been.
Oh, I didn't know
Yeah,
that.
pretty sure.
We didn't. We were looking for an extra suitcase to bring back merchandise, so we didn't visit the firearms department. But how are you anyway, Bruce? More to the point.
Doing okay, yeah. Back at work after a putter last week, which was good fun, as it always is. It's funny because it's always the first full week of January. So with New Year's Day being a Monday, back in the office on a Tuesday, or working, I should say, on the Tuesday, working remotely, and then go down to Rye on Wednesday. So it's quite a funny, like, sort of false
It's a
start.
token gesture, basically.
Yeah, and your colleagues who are sort of, even those who are into golf, are like, what are you doing playing a golf competition in January? Are you going abroad? It's like, nope, I'm going to the south coast of England. But it was amazing. Yeah, had a good time. We were pretty lucky with the weather. How about you guys? You've only recently landed back from the States.
Jet lags. Yeah, it's not the best, is it?
No, it's not great coming back.
I'm pretty tired as it goes, I must say.
You're very tired.
I'm very tired. I'm pretty
Very
tired.
tired.
Thing is, like, this is the problem with planes. So we had an overnight on the way back, and I started watching Murder on the Orient Express, but I only got like
Good film.
20 minutes in before I fell asleep. So when I got back, like last night, once I put the kids to bed, I was like, all right, I'm going to finish Murder on the Orient Express. That was like 2.5 hours later, so I didn't get to bed till like 11. I was absolutely knackered.
Yeah.
Bit daft in retrospect.
Before we kick this podcast off in earnest, Bruce, how did you fare in the putter? We were following your progress, which I believe got through to the. Yeah, but I don't think our listeners are quite as invested. I was looking at it in breakfast, and
Saturday.
Whoever's updating those scores isn't doing it quick enough. So you need to have a word and just get that done a bit more timely, I think.
Well, in the spirit of, the putter and Rye, we just kind of go at our own pace, really.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to have live leaderboards or anything like that following around. No golf game book. No, I got through to the last 16, so that was Saturday morning, and lost my match.
Didn't you? Wasn't your first round pretty clutch?
Oh yeah, well, I was playing against a good mate from uni, Monty, who got to the final last year, because it's a random draw, so there's no like seeding or anything like that. And so Monty and I, we were at uni at the same time, and he's been playing good golf, so we had a good tussle. Went to the 22nd hole.
Christ.
Hilarious. Yeah.
What did you do on the fourth hole at Rye then? Did you just blaze one down the right?
What did I do? I hit the fairway, actually. Yeah, weirdly for me, hit the fairway. And had a wedge in. So yeah, that, and then Oppo just sort of held it. Monty just kind of held it up against the left a touch, and it's tough if you go left on the forward there. So you got a little bit unlucky, and that was enough for me to squeak through. But it was there was quite a few matches actually that week. Went to extra holes. So Harry went to the 19th in his match. Sadly lost Friday afternoon. That was another good tussle. So yeah, it's quite good fun, especially as you start getting into the later rounds of it. you get like a bit of a, you know, a few people who've finished their matches or maybe got knocked out earlier in the week will come out with like a glass and like sort of walk down the fairways in the sort of fading light.
Good grief, young man. That's huge, that drive. Bloody hell.
Not quite.
Is it
but
strange that because this is your, is it fourth or fifth,
yeah.
fourth putter, you start to get to know people beyond the scope of, you know, who you knew in uni.
Yeah.
Is it weird, like you start to play against, like, you know, mates or people you've met that are elder statesmen of the, you know, of the whole program? You know, is that a bit strange?
Yeah. No, there's definitely people who, you know, it's such a like eclectic mix, but like a close knit mix of people. I mean, you know, there's broadly speaking 150, I would say 150 people who play in the putter each year, and a lot of those names, the vast majority, will be regulars, I would say, and go down and play each year. And so you quickly get to know who's in form and people who've got good records and have played well over recent years, people who've won it several times. And there's always a bit of speculation leading up to it. You know, oh, you've got a tough draw. Oh, like you should have a good first few rounds, whatever. You know, oh, you're playing a bit of an unknown quantity. He's a current, you know, undergrad, or he's, you know, no one knows what his game's like, or you know, what's the vast match he played really well. So there's always a good bit of like speculation going on beforehand. Funnily enough, one good friend who's a few years older, but I've just got to know through playing down there over the last few years. He was like, "Yeah, I don't enter the putter anymore. I just go in the plate on the Friday because I just find that, you know, the draw coming out and the whole experience of playing the putter would ruin my year for the sort of few months leading up to it, worrying about who I was going to play in the first round and just going through all these, you know, chaotic scenarios and catastrophizing it in my head. And then when I'd lost the match, I spent the next 6 months of the year just kicking myself out having lost. So I've just decided to kind of go into the plate as a result, which is quite a funny story. But yeah, you know, it's great. It's a great laugh. How about you boys? Enough about me. Your trip to the States.
Very good. Yeah, we'll pick it apart, I think, on a proper tour pod. We went with Ryan, the man behind the Addington. He was great, wasn't he, Tom? Tom and Ryan basically established what was called the back management program, which is now very quickly become an industry leading sort of, what would you call it, Thomas? It's sort of basically a health tech company now.
Yeah, I'd say the back management program is going to be soon established as one of the greatest things that's come out of golf in 2024. Essentially, it's very bespoke. So I've got a slip disc. Ryan's got just an ongoing bad back, and it's very, very bespoke how you deal with the back management program. But for Ryan, it just involved not drinking beer. Apparently, it's the chemicals in beer would give him a bad back. So that he solved that by drinking rum. So that was okay. My back management program included drinking loads of beer. It's just really, you know, it really differs.
It's very bespoke stuff, isn't it?
Yeah,
bespoke. But it was so much fun. Yeah, we'll pick it apart on a upcoming pod. I mean, the sort of real interesting part was playing 3, you know, very high end private new build courses in quick succession, and just seeing how they're each different and what they're doing with them. So, I mean, it basically played Old Barnwell, a Hoopy, and Tree Farm in sort of almost successive days, really, a few days at a Hoopy. And like, spoiler alert here, they were all great. So no shock there, but it was just quite interesting seeing them. So it was good. You would be proud of me, Bruce. New year, new me. I've taken on a full-time coach.
I saw that at Hagley.
Yeah, and I've started recording stats.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. He's a new man.
Which, yeah.
And what do the stats show?
Interesting. Well, it's surprising, isn't it? I actually chipped and putted very well in America. So it doesn't show that I can't get up and down. But I think it's not too sort of time intensive. I'm tracking playable seconds, greens in reg, 30 opportunities. So sort of within 15 feet with a look at birdie, how many putts you make over 10 feet, whether you get up and down, obviously things like score. And it's quite interesting. You know, it does. I think the idea is not to use that to quickly diagnose based on 3 rounds of golf, but to build it up over a kind of ongoing period of time.
Yeah, and I think people can get lost in the weed of stats. Like there are programs out there that just are a bit too cumbersome, and I'm sure they've spit out some good data, but I think it can take the fun away from it a little bit. But if you've got a few categories there that you can do in your head on the drive home from the golf club, that's really powerful. I mean, I'm conscious you played foursomes, didn't you, at a hoopy? But how was the
I
score
didn't, yeah.
there? Were you kind of, you felt like you played quite well? You had a few good rounds, a few bad rounds. What did the stats sort of show much on that front?
I played like a
Greens in- yeah.
donut, which is probably not helpful. I was having, I was having to inhale kind of transfusion chases on the fourth just to kind of settle the nerves a bit. I was life was not good for Tom Mills, but I think Sam played all right.
Yeah, played okay. It was tidy enough. The usual sort of disasters thrown in there, but do you know what the big takeaway when I looked at the stats was? I played okay. I put some pretty decent rounds together. You do not get many birdie chances. If you're categorizing a birdie chance as sub 15 feet for a 3 or 4 or whatever, you don't get that many, do you, in a
No.
round of golf?
We want to make 3-4 around. It's like, yeah, we need to think again.
Yeah, exactly. I think I got, I certainly didn't beat 3 in a round, put it that way. So no, it was really cool. And look, we're going to fully dissect it.
Are
on
you
an
still
upcoming
doing
podcast.
stats, Bruce? Is that gone?
I'm not doing them at this moment in time, but TBC whether I'm going to roll them out for the 2024 season.
Because you've kind of flip flop. You went from like mega stats, kind of Scott Fawcett decade, then into Martinez to see the shot, wallop the shot.
Yeah.
Just was it wear it out?
You called yourself a shot maker for a short period of time, I seem to remember.
The
were
shotgun
you,
of mine is,
were
yeah.
you tracking stats with the air stuff?
No, I still, I haven't spoken to Martin for a bit, but he's just an absolutely brilliant mind, and I think probably encouraged me to think about the game in a slightly deeper sort of philosophical way. I don't know if he'd mind me saying this, but I think Martin's like a philosopher, really, which is probably what I need in the golf swing or the golf
Shrink,
game.
yeah.
And yeah, like the biggest problem with stats, I would say, is believing that they tell the full story. Even like the granular ones like Decade don't. Strokes gained around the greens like one of the worst metrics ever, because you could have a chip from the same yardage and one could be really easy and one could be impossible. And strokes gained short game and stats around short game won't factor that. So
Yeah, up and downs could be a great chip and a shit putt, or a great chip and an easy putt, or a poor chip and a great putt. You know what I mean?
yeah, but even the strokes gained stuff. So it's like you could have a 5 yard, let's say you have a 10-yard bunker shot, or a 10, let me make it simpler, a 10-yard shot from the fairway to the flag. If you've got 10 yards of green between your ball and the hole, then that's quite straightforward. And let's say it's flat. But if you've got, 2 yards of green and then 8 yards of rough and it's downhill and there's water behind it, that's a totally different story. But the strokes gain can't sort of compete that, really. So I would say at the moment I'm out on a deep analysis of stats, but I think what Sam is getting at there, maybe something shorthand, I think I could be partial to. What about you, Mil? Where are you standing on this?
Let's concentrate on hitting the ball first, then we can wonder about what the stats say.
You've had a lot going on with the back management program, haven't you, really? I mean, that takes up a lot of time. And bringing that to market is going to take a lot of effort.
How are the new sticks?
Really good. The driver's very good. Duncan built one, Duncan Titus built one. He said, you cannot make this go left. And I challenged him on occasion. I challenged us, challenge accepted. But invariably now the normal swing is I'm struggling to hook it, which is good. So no. I mean, I'm playing myself down. I didn't play terribly, but I really threw in some absolute trash, but I didn't play terribly on the whole. And no, I think they're right. It's nice. Sam's played well with his. He did, considering he's only played a few rounds. I mean, we don't want to get into the nitty gritty of it all, but
no, but I've got
kind of he was red on 17 at Tree Farm. Spoiler alert! On the 17th tee at Tree Farm, he was red.
Which was red by the 18th green, Bruce. I've actually really enjoyed them. Yeah, so I've well, I've got the T100s in the bag, and then I think sort of step up to the T200s in the 3, 4, and 5.
The T100.
No, I said TS tonight.
This is going to be good fun in the edit.
He's still
Yeah.
in retro mindset.
So many fucking clubs. So I've got the I'm in the T100s, and then I step up to like the T200s, just a bit more help in the long irons, and I've hit those really good. I mean, my favorite comment was from the caddy around Tree Farm. Hit this 3-iron from about 230 out, and he just goes, "He's absolutely hammered that one,"
I
and
think
it's like airmailed the green by 15. I was just hitting them really good. Like they're flying solid and higher, and I'm quite enjoying trying to put a bit more work into my golf. Actually, I'm actually enjoying it. It's not a journey I've ever really enjoyed. So yeah,
Good.
I'm going to try and persevere with it. So anyway,
Yeah.
we've been away. You've been kind of perusing and scrolling a bit, and I'm probably a bit closer to some of the developments. Bruce, why don't you give us a quick rundown of some of the key headlines we've seen this week?
Well, God, yeah. Where to start? It's been a big couple of weeks, hasn't it? Really.
it's a
Back in
fire.
I think the first bit of news, which was anticipated from, I want to say the PNC, if not just before, that Tiger Woods and Nike's partnership was at an end after 27 years, which has now been confirmed to be the case. I think it was Monday of this week. They both put up touching social media posts, didn't they? Just calling an end or just announcing the end of their 27-year partnership together, which, I mean, it is iconic. And I feel like we don't really cover paid athlete partnerships very much on this podcast. But if there is one that we could linger on for a moment, I think this seems like the one that we should, discuss briefly. Yeah, I guess we saw, there were rumors about it back at the PNC, with Charlie wearing some Grayson outfits and whatnot, and Tiger giving a fairly sort of quiet, sort of timid response when he was asked a direct question. I guess golf seems to be on the back burner for Nike. They left the club business a good few years ago. Maybe a little footnote to add: Jason Day came out with some honking clobber on
Malbon.
on
He's
Mount.
dropped Nike
Yeah,
as well,
I
hasn't he?
mean,
He's dropped
wow.
Nike.
And that was last week. That was the week before the Tiger news broke. So that kind of added a bit of fuel to the fire. And then sure enough, the confirmation on Monday. It's just, maybe it's not that surprising, but equally you think if there was one athlete that Nike could have just held on to for a bit longer, Tiger would have been the man. He and Michael Jordan have just been iconic, haven't they, for that brand?
What's the chat? Is it he's going to be with Grayson? Is that the?
Well, yeah. So there was a footnote, wasn't there, in Tiger's announcement that there is going to be another chapter, which I think is what you're alluding to there, Mills. Whether he might be with Grayson.
Could we sign him up as a sock partner? Is that completely out of the question at
Yeah,
this?
sources of the
We're in
drive.
early conversations, but I just don't know if we're going to get it over the line.
Or the
Mm.
hat? If we could take the hat, that'd be
rope
quite good.
hats, tour visors, some great belts, socks.
Yeah.
Just just a chance to sort of put a sort of shameless plug for our merch in there. What happens? Like you say, it's all bets are off.
Yeah. I mean, are you saying all bets are off in terms of who's he going to sign with next, or just Nike's place in golf generally?
I think a lot of it. I think, like you say, there's a lot of speculation that obviously this is a bit of a strategic move by Nike to come away from the golf business. Clearly, that's an iconic partnership, but there's a difference, isn't there? I think Nike are firmly in the basketball game, so having the deal with Jordan and the fact that Air Jordan, he owns, an element of that trademark. There's a percentage of sales. Tiger owns the TW brand, like that's his. Nike have no involvement in that. So that's not, I wouldn't say it's too shocking that they're stepping away from it. Weirdly, if you're Malbon and you've signed Jason Day, the timing could not have been better. It's weird how that whole sort of Wood stepping away from Nike in some ways has propelled the Malbon partnership with Jason Day, because it's almost put that into sharper focus. But it's weird, isn't it? It's strange seeing some of these sort of big brands, or sort of new and emerging brands rather, picking up, top tier professional golfers.
There's murmurs about TaylorMade are going to make a bit of a play in the golf clothing space.
It is interesting though, isn't it?
Yeah, I guess Rory's the next big one. You think, obviously his contract could be up at a later date, but are we just going to see completely end of Nike in the golf world? So yeah, it'll be weird if they completely pull out of the game. But
I always thought it was a bit weird that they didn't, because they entered the equipment market for a bit, didn't they? And they've got the best player in the world. Then they had Rory as well, and then they kind of dropped out of club making. They dropped out of ball making. They've been trying to. Feels like they've been trying to make a quiet exit for a little while. It was just kind of sort of when more than if, really.
Yeah.
I
I
mean,
think it's just reflective of the fact that golf is just it's a very small sport, isn't it, compared to football and I mean like actual football compared to basketball, which I guess Nike's two key brands. Running, I mean they're really like a running
I
brand.
think they're losing share in running. I think that's been cited as like another
Yeah.
thing. So I think they're probably just trying to consolidate a little bit. But far be it from us to speculate too heavily on Nike's strategic vision. But we'll have a bloody good go. What else have we got? We've got Slumber stepping down. Keith
Yeah,
Pelly stepping away. That was
big
that was
happening.
that was literally 2 days apart. Well, one was on consecutive days rather, wasn't it?
Yeah. So Martin Slumbers has been in post at the RNA for coming up on 9 years now, and yeah, it's been announced that he will finish his term as chief executive of the RNA Limited, but by the end of 2024. So presumably they're looking for a successor now. Yeah, it's I don't know if you can really blame him given what he's had to put up with over the last couple of years or so. I mean, the obviously the Distance Insight report was commissioned a few years ago now, and I guess rollback is something that's always been on the agenda. But with the RNA and the USJ also having to kind of play referee in this fallout between the PGA Tour and Live coming on the scene, and the fracturing of like the DP World Tour, COVID, and having to deal with the postponement of a lot of events there, the Open. I mean, the Open's grown enormously in size, and it feels like the RNA probably wants to focus more on like golf development projects. There's the big project near Glasgow, and I guess the overall sort of promotion of the game at a grassroots level, as well as the Open and certain flagship events. And yeah, he's had a pretty rough ride of it. So maybe not all that surprising to see him go, but it's slightly shorter tenure than what his predecessors in Peter Dawson, the late Michael Banalek. I think they were about sort of 15, 16 years. So it's a little bit shorter tenure, but I don't know if people are reading too much into it.
Yeah, I like you say, it's a long time, isn't it? In to take I mean, it's a pretty bruising 4 or 5 years that I would imagine. Eventually you reach a point where you're like, God, do I really need this? But I mean, whoever steps into that post of the RNA is going to have to oversee quite a significant change to the equipment in the form of the rollback stuff, aren't they? That's going to be a significant piece over the next few years. So, I mean, I'm guessing they'll need to, whoever comes on board will need to be signing up to that. I feel I'd be outrageous if someone stepped into that position and then, you know what I mean, and did a complete U-turn on it or change the rules now that they've kind of been laid out in front.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? There's some these are some pretty fundamental characteristics of or elements to whoever you're choosing into that post. If they're not signed up to rollback in any way, shape, or form, that's a real problem. It's a bit like
I think they're only going to
when we
hire
appoint
someone who's signed up to rollback, aren't they? That's pretty much that's done and dusted. He's going to be part of the interview process, isn't he? So he's got another year. So I think he'll be part of it. I mean, there's not much he's done though. I think this is probably Sam. You'll know as the head of a big multinational company. It's probably the same for all you big owners. But there's not much that he's done that hasn't been attacked from both sides. Roll back. With people like, oh, he shouldn't have rolled back, and some people didn't roll back far enough. The RNA clubhouse, which should have been done, but then it takes too long, and nearly everything he's done, he's been pretty much attacked, but from both sides of the aisle, which is pretty hard to deal with, isn't it?
I think it's tricky when you're in that position, isn't it? Like Keith Pelly's in a very similar space there. But he was damned if you do, damned if you don't, wasn't he? So there's not enough money in the European Tour as it was known at the time. There's the emergence of a lot of money from the Middle East. You partner up with the PGA Tour and then lose an element of control. Do you partner up with the Saudis and then take people take the moral high ground on you? I think Keith Pelly's interesting. There's a really good article by John Huggan, which I read the other day. Really saying that the legacy of Keith Pelly's actually, people were very quick to criticize him. And actually, he's done a pretty good job. Like when you look at his time when he stepped into the post versus now, the DP World Tour could have folded really in some respects, couldn't it? In the time that he's been in office, and he's led it through to a point where there's a bit more progression for some of the players. Purses have kind of done okay. You know, it is a tricky job to do. I would hate that, wouldn't you? I'd
Well,
hate to be in
yeah.
a position where you're literally sat there thinking, whatever I choose, I'm going to get nailed for this stuff, and you've got to do your best with it.
Yeah, I think some people would say, well, he's turned the DP World Tour into a feeder tour for the PGA Tour. Now, the counterpoint to that is, well, the PGA Tour's always been the bigger tour that the best in the world have played at, but he or played on rather. But he's formalized it, and obviously there's been much clearer messaging around the DP World Tour, being almost like a subsidiary or a kind of a strategic junior partner of the PGA Tour under Pelly's sort of leadership. But as you say, Sam, I don't know if he was really left with any alternative. Like if sponsors were pulling out, there was a really tough market with COVID there for trying to get sponsors to come and sponsor these events where there were fewer and fewer top 50 players going and playing in them. And he's just kind of managed to sort of steer a bit of a course where they've gotten a lot closer to the PGA Tour, and I guess some of the successes would be the co-sanctioned events like the Genesis Scottish Open. I'm sure he would have had some role to play in that, coordinating the schedules and making the case that getting top American players, top PGA Tour players to come and play in Europe before the Open would be a good thing. So
it's a flip side to the coin, though, isn't it? That I agree with you. Arguably, it's not even that arguable, but arguably, he's kind of made into a feeder tour. But in doing so, has kind of guaranteed a lifeline to a tour that had no long-term future, really, and no long-term guarantees. Do you think we can read anything into the merger, the PGA Tour merger with the Public Investment Fund, and maybe he's heard been on the table, had some conversations, heard what's going on, and thinks, not for me.
There's two ways of looking at this, I think. You could look at this as two isolated incidents. One guy wants to move back home and take on a job in sports management, Maple Leaf, whatever it's called. The other steps down from a high profile post, and they're completely independent of one another. The other says, oh, this is all happening at the same time. All of a sudden you start thinking, oh, Rory's changed his tune, hasn't he? Quite significantly last few weeks. You think, I don't know, far be it from me to say Jay Monahan's been on the ropes for a while, but I mean, he's certainly not, I'm pretty surprised he's still in post, given everything that's happened and some of the U-turns that he's had to take. I think, well, I don't know, is there some sort of bigger game at play? I don't know. I'm certainly haven't got any sources that would say to me, oh, there's something much bigger at play here. But there is a possibility that if you were a bit more skeptical, you might think that. Do you not? I don't know. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't know whether this is maybe a slightly wild take, but I don't know whether some of the guys who are at the head roles in these big organizations in golf now think about it in those kind of personal terms that they may have done, or those the kind of points of principle that they might have done, 10, 20, 30 plus years ago. Obviously, the organizations are a lot bigger now, and the scale of them is such that, like, you're getting in people who are sort of hardened business executives. I don't mean that in a disparaging way, but people who've just had very, very successful careers. I'm pretty sure Martin Slumbers, for example, the RNA, worked for a big bank. I don't know if it was Deutsche Bank or HSBC. And Keith Pelly's got a big background in media. I think he was at Rogers Media and president of Sports Network, TSN. So, and Monahan's probably the same. I just feel like they're probably a bit more kind of dispassionate, objective kind of businessmen now than than their kind of predecessors. And so I don't know if he would be sort of backing away from it on moral grounds, because, well, as far as we know, there's no real change of substance to the terms that he'd agreed with Monahan previously back in April of 2023 regarding the PIF merger. I just think there's, you kind of go in, do a job, but it's a slightly shorter term than maybe their predecessors would have served. But it's probably a job well done, and on to the next challenge would be my reading of it. But I don't know. Who knows?
No, I think that's a great take. I think it's a great take. It's not these things aren't vocations, are they? They're not sort of like callings of people who've been in the just in and around the game forever, and it's sort of their turn to sit there. I'm not suggesting that of other people, but there was, I think it's fair to assume that people might, like you say, be a bit more dispassionate towards the role or whatever, and you just think, well, okay, I'm kind of my time's done now. I've achieved what I think I can achieve.
Yeah, yeah. It's funny, isn't it? I mean, this looking at the comparison, Jay Monahan's sort of counterpart in the NFL, guy called like Roger Goodell, for example. He's probably a more rare case nowadays. I think I might be right in thinking that he joined the NFL when he was like straight out of college or straight out of school, like 18, 20 years old, in like a backroom job, and worked his way up to be NFL commissioner. I don't think that really happens anymore now in a lot of these big sports leagues. I think it's more strategic hires from people who've got background in big business, and it makes sense because you're dealing with sums of money now that are just astronomical, and the kind of world of finance and law and just media partnerships is just all much more complex and kind of high value than it used to be. And yeah, maybe that's just reflected in kind of slightly shorter tenures and being slightly less invested emotionally and personally in the direction that these things are moving.
I think it's certainly going to be an interesting period. It's hard not to believe that Jay Monahan's is going to be in a job for that much longer. But then again, we've been saying that for ages, and he's still knocking around. So it's such a strange one with the wraparound season because we just had the Century come through. Did you watch any of the Century? You like the Century?
I
Don't you,
didn't
Sam?
watch. I love it. I think it's a really good event.
Yeah, I'd love
I
to get
actually,
to the golf course, wouldn't you?
I was, yeah. I've all. If you said to me, "Park the majors," which events would you like to play the course?
You're
Century
insane.
would probably be like top 5 or so. Only because when you watch it, you're like, this looks mental. Like they really struggle with their approaches to sort of distance. Clearly, there's such a monumental elevation change. I would just be fascinated to see the course.
It's funny how they struggle and then go and shoot 30 under there, isn't it? Like the
Yeah, I
scoring
know.
is always off the
It
scale.
is. It's ridiculous. So many scoreable reaching
I think
holes
like
where it drains in.
the vistas are like dramatic, and it looks like there's some fairly generous fairways. I guess it has to be generous because the scoring is just always ridiculous. And yeah, Hawaii. I mean, I've never been to Hawaii. I've never even got close to going to Hawaii, but I imagine it'd just be quite a nice place to just go and tee it up, and then
I
go
think
and
it's like the time of the year, though. Like I feel like the events on the PGA Tour kind of help chapter the year a little bit. So when you've come through Christmas, I'm not a big fan of that sort of post-amble Christmas, New Year. It's all a bit dark. You're sort of, gearing up to get back to work and stuff. So when that comes on the first Thursday or whatever after New Year, you're like, wow, okay, cool. New Year, we're into it.
yeah.
Oh, it's a limited field as well, so it's kind of smaller field. You can follow the action a bit. It's an ungodly time zone, so you're not really going to be worried about committing yourself completely to the conclusion. I quite like the Century. I'm a big fan of that.
Yeah.
It being my top 5 staple PGA Tour events, actually.
That you
Who
like
won
getting
it?
them.
Who won it, Sam?
Absolutely no idea. Absolutely no idea.
To be fair, we can forgive you on this occasion because you were
I think
flying.
we were boozing pretty hard in a Hoopy match club at the time.
So another event.
Akshay was going good, wasn't he, on Saturday? Because we were in Aitken having a few drinks in Whiskey Alley, and we're like, oh wow, he's looking really good. But then things had changed. I didn't quite get to the top of the leaderboard to watch that conclude on Sunday night.
Yeah, Chris Kirk, though, quite a good story again. Obviously, he's had a good fight back last couple of years from some personal struggles, so he ended up winning. But it's I agree with you. I think it's one of the events that's worth watching for sure. There's an event on this week, the Dubai Invitational at Dubai Creek.
That looks like it's got a decent field.
Yeah, well, there is a story on this that we do need to go in on. It has got a decent field, and I think McIlroy set the pace yesterday with a 62, 9 under. Funny enough, I've actually played that golf course, and I didn't think it was that easy when I played it.
As easy as
thought-
Rory McIlroy found it.
Yeah, I thought,
Funny that, isn't it?
if you drive it 300 through the air, this might be easy. And obviously, he drives it 320, so he's gone and made short work of it. But I did find it quite amusing. Do you guys see Eddie Pepperell's comments?
No.
No, go on,
No.
enlighten us.
So Eddie Pepperell went absolutely nuts about sponsors exemptions because Michael Jordan's director of golf at the Grove 23 got a sponsors exemption. His name's Ken Wayand. He started 4 5 4 5 4 5 7 5 4 3, and then
Oh,
came
shit.
back in,
I'm just looking at it.
44 for an 87.
He shot 82, but he followed up with an 82, to be fair, on today.
Yeah,
So
87. Anyway, Eddie Pepperell flew in and said, limited man field, and old Ken Wayand gets an invite and then does this. I don't care if it's Ken from Barbie, it shouldn't happen. It's savage.
he's kind of got a point, to be fair, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Did Eddie Pepperell not make the field by some chance?
Probably, and that's the other thing. I always hate myself, but I can't resist doing it for a few minutes and just like going into the comment section on Instagram or Twitter and just seeing a few people pile on Eddie and be like, "Well, you're crap. You haven't even got invited to it. What have you ever done?" And then someone's like, "He came top 10 at the Open at Carnoustie," and it's just this back and forth, like the absolute worst of humanity comes out. But anyway,
Oh my God, you type this guy in, he's just littered across Google. All you get is just salty takes about this guy playing. Poor Ken. Tough day.
So no,
Oh.
a bit of news of note from the Divine Invitational.
It's pretty.
What else? Okay,
But it's a great example, though, isn't it? It's a great example there. That's a really good field, and like, yeah, it's very easy to absolutely lambast the DP World Tour. But that's a really solid event, like really good.
I think it's more the relation when Bruce explains who he is. Who's like, he's Michael Jordan's cousin's brother's sports marketing guy. Ooh,
Yeah, I mean, he's
Okay.
some way south, isn't he? So you see, he's closed out Thursday, Friday at plus 27. Jens Dantorp has, is penultimate plus 10.
He could have
So-
shaved. He could have shaved 26 shots off his 2-round score and still being dead last. 26 shots is a lot of shots.
hang on, what?
16 shots.
That's
16
so
shots.
good.
I'm still working on South time.
A couple of other little bits. I don't want to keep bringing us back to Live and the PIF and the changing golf landscape and all that stuff, but Farmers Insurance, another sponsor of the PGA Tour, that has announced it's not going to be renewing its sponsorship of a headline event, which is the Farmers Insurance Open at Torrey Pines. So that's, as far as I'm aware, that's the Farmers Insurance and Wells Fargo in the last 6 or 8 months.
They're looking good, is it?
We're out of headline sponsorship.
Sam made a really good point. Was it Sam? It was somebody.
Man, I doubt it. Sounds unlikely.
Someone else made a really good point when we were out in America that if you are not top 50 in the world right now, but you are on the PGA Tour, you've got like 1 year to just make as much hay as you can.
Yeah.
You've just got to go absolute barbaric this year because we've still got the elevated events, whatever they're called. You've still got good purses. There is going to be some money in the PGA Tour this year, but that is absolutely not guaranteed next year. So some of these players, they're,
I don't know. Yeah, it could just fold, couldn't it? It feels like it could fold at any moment. Do you not think it could just be like in like 2 weeks' time, if they said, "Yeah, we're actually just going to cancel the rest of the season and we're going to go under this new umbrella tour," like I wouldn't be that surprised.
What are there in terms of like headline PGA events? Probably something like 26, 30 a year, roughly. I think when you then take out, then you got to take out some of the co-sanctioned stuff with like DP World Tour, things like Dubai. You've got to take out the major. You take out sort of, okay, that maybe let's give them their 30, but you lose 2 sponsors in quick succession. That is a really bad trajectory because a lot of these sponsors are mainstay. Like they have them for years because
they're not
like,
queuing up. They've got to wait.
No, it's not like they're changing year on year.
Plucking a number out the air here. I feel like someone who worked for the tour told me a few years ago now, pre-live, pre all that stuff, that it was like $25 to $30 million to get headline sponsorship of a big PGA Tour event.
The
And
bit that
that's
I find,
doubled now, I think, as a result of Live and the PIF coming along. And it's like, I just can't imagine there are many big corporate sponsors who are going to go and pay $50 million. Just be like, yeah, here you go. Here's one event. And not many people are actually going to watch
So
it.
much to risk,
but
isn't it?
even then it was 25 million. It's very difficult to understand how they're getting some payback on that. Yes, it's exposure. You know, they might do some good business there, but it's really hard to see what the return is. You know, when
Yeah.
there must be stuff you can do in other sports which just isn't requiring that level of funding.
Or if it does require that level of funding, you'll get a lot more eyeballs on it. Because again, I hate to keep banging the same drum. It's like golf is, and I think it's great for it. Golf is like a minority sport compared to, you know, Major League Baseball, NFL, NBA, Premier League football. Like it's just in a different. There's just so few people. We literally run a golf podcast, and we don't watch PGA Tour events with all much frequency. I mean, do you need to hear any more?
Yeah, it's strange as well. I mean, you've got to think that the goal here with PIF is just to throw so much money at it that you just drive PGA Tour into ground. And once it's gone, it's like, okay, cool. Now we can just sort of normalize the levels here. Because if we're wondering how an insurance company can justify spending 50 million quid on sponsoring an event, how do you justify dropping 400 mil, which is like more than they paid for Newcastle United in the Premiership on John Rahm? I mean, it's like,
Yeah,
it's remarkable.
yeah.
Truly
Well, it's
remarkable.
It's a seller's market right now, isn't it? Let's be honest. You know, there's stuff changing hands for whether it's purses, whether it's contracts to play, etc. You know, dare I say these endorsement deals, you know, there's a lot of news around those that we've just touched on. It's clearly a lot of money flying around. Will that stay? Don't know. But I think there'll be changes in the structure, which means this year, like you said, Tom, if you're outside the top 50, but you've got starts in good events, you know, it feels like this is a year to make some serious cash. There's a chance that you could be looking there in a few years' time going, oh, crikey, that's actually really diminished year on year. Who
Anyway,
knows?
moving
time will
forward,
tell.
what's going on in the world in the next week? I'm not going to be around, so
You're going skiing, aren't you? Which now I'll be honest, Tom, I have backed out of skiing holidays. The risk to the golfing season and our own livelihood is just too great.
I know, and especially considering I'm still on the back management program, which is
Yeah.
it's having to deal with that right now. There's two conflicting ideologies. It's difficult, but
Bruce, did you know Tom is nearly paralyzed?
I think if he just gets T-boned by a snowboarder on a blue run and then goes
He's
in
dead.
for solid après ski, that might just knock him back into shape and slip that disc right back into place. And he could be, you know, he might not need the back management program by the time he gets back. So
He'll be full-time Ironside if he's not careful. It's he was a detective, wasn't he? Yeah, something like that.
sorry, over my head.
Yeah, Tom, you're not in a good way with that back, are you?
no. But I find comfort in thinking that while I'm trying to negotiate my way down a ski slope, that you're going to be just writing numbers in Excel spreadsheets and striping 7 irons till your hands bleed.
Well,
We've decided we put some cards in America, Bruce.
Oh, good for you.
oh yeah, this is
Yeah, so
interesting.
because we were like, look, let's put our money where our mouth is. You know, we're going to declare it and we're going to put cards in, which is brilliant because when you get to try and use the England Golf app or whatever it is in America, it don't work. So that fell out the sky pretty quickly. We phoned a friend of ours, codenamed JP, did not help us out, but he's got loads of cards in from various parts
Definitely
of the
did
planet.
help us out. Apparently, you go to his club secretary with them.
Is that what you do?
But I
Just
mean,
say-
I have to have something that I'm sort of aiming for when I'm on the golf course. Something to give me a bit of like just to keep me keen. So it's a different discipline. We've sort of bagged on it pretty hard for a while. But the reality when we did that year-end podcast, I was like, shit, we literally put 8 cards in 6 different days last year. And Tom made a really fair point, which was your handicap is no truer because you're only putting them in on Saturdays because you're hardly putting cards in at all
Yeah.
than if you were to just put a larger volume of cards in. I think as long as you take the good and the bad in equal measure, that is the key thing with this stuff. As long as you're not sort of cherry picking or whatever.
If you go and put in, you know, 68 round Old Barnwell, 68 round Tree Farm, and then don't
And
put
then
in
not put in 110 from somewhere else.
yeah, there's the 80 round a hoopy or whatever, then then that gets a bit sketchy. But yeah, as you say, take the good and the bad. Funnily enough, talking of New Year's resolutions, I've signed up for an indoor
Live?
simulator in London.
Back management program.
No, 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 a simulator, a little simulator near the office in London. So I'm going to start going there. I think maybe once a week or twice a week for half an hour, just to try and keep the swing moving during the winter months and during the week. Funnily enough, there's actually quite a lot of indoor simulators that are popping up in and around central London. Obviously, urban golf is the sort of home away from home for Cookie Jar. But there's a couple of other options as well, like sort of in and around the city. So yes, we're all kind of on that New Year's resolution high, aren't we, of trying to get better.
So you're hitting some balls at lunch.
I'm going to do it, I think, maybe at lunch or maybe actually before work. I tend to find like I've got a bit more control over like my diary and earlier on in the day, whereas in the evening, like I could book to go, but it might just it gets a bit harder. So I'm looking at trying to do mornings if I can, just sort of try
I
and
played with somebody who's living in New York, and he goes and hits balls in the morning. He's like, yeah, just go half an hour, hit balls, 8:30, something like that, then into work. Like, yeah, it's quite civilized actually. It's quite a nice way to start the day.
Yeah, if you hit it well, it's fine, isn't it? And you're not
The scar tissue for 8 hours sitting there going, I'm just no, I'm a hair too steep at B5.
Just going, yeah, exactly. He's the model, isn't he? Just
Can you imagine if you ended your last ball on a hosel and you had to go to work? It's just be like, be
well,
catastrophic.
would you, Tom? You wouldn't.
I don't know how it works. Perhaps if it's time limited, I don't know. Maybe ball mate, get out.
You get dispensed 50 balls.
Bringing it back to me for a second, how far would you persevere, Bruce, with swing changes and a program of activity before you give it a miss and say it's not working? A lot of people probably looking at that stuff now in the new year. I'm curious, as somebody who's been through more phases of this than they've had hot dinners, I think you've probably got the answer on this.
Well, you've got to figure it out. Like, you've got to bring it back to, I think, like first principles before you make the change. It's like, why are you doing this? You have to be like quite, I think, sort of open and frank about, what you're looking to improve. Funnily enough, to bring it back to stats, yeah, if you can hit more greens in regulation, you're going to become a better player. That's just the reality of it. That there's a high correlation there, but obviously there's a huge amount of things that go into hitting more greens in regulation. So, maybe you feel like you've got to drive it a bit better. So have you got to do something to fix your swing with your longer clubs? And
he wants a bit more width at the top in transition, but he's set me up. He's on this app.
But why though? Why? My question for that is like, why do you want more width? Because I don't think that's deep enough. It's like, is it because you feel like you need to hit the ball higher? Do you feel like you need to therefore be shallower? Do you need more dynamic loft? Do you need to make sure that you're
all three were mentioned?
All of those things. So that's fine. That frames it. Yeah, you want more dynamic loft. You need to get it higher. So okay, maybe you do need to make sure that you're like able to deliver the club appropriately, and width might be part of that. I'm not sure.
He's put me on this app, and you basically go in, and I sort of like take a screenshot of my stats. I send it to him.
Yeah.
He can read it. Messages back. I post swings into it as well, and then it's got like a body tracking thing on there as well. So it's got like the pinpoints and stuff on.
Yeah.
He'll do that. You can then record voiceovers like my end or his end.
Oh, nice.
So I sent him something from like Barnwell, and he came back and was like, "Yeah, this is really good. This one just looks like you've just collapsed in there, just in transition or whatever. This is what I'd be thinking." So it's like real time. It's quite impressive.
What's it called? The app?
The app is called something called On Form. Now, the thing is, again, we should stop saying we run a golf podcast and how shabby we are at being attuned to these types of things. But it's a pretty neat bit of technology.
Yeah.
Like, it's really good. And like I say, the ability to put in, you can slow it down very, very slow. You can put all this stuff like it tracks the key parts of your body automatically. You can record the voiceovers, and it's just backwards and forwards with the coach. It's really clever.
Is that something that someone could do on their Todd, or do they need a coach for that?
I think there are resources online. I haven't looked into it enough detail.
I'm not having that. I'm not having that. No, I'm not having that.
Don't teach yourself. Don't teach yourself. You use fucking YouTube. Absolutely insane idea. I totally what you're doing there, Sam. If you have someone you trust and buy into, then go for it. The crazy thing about this game, I remember chatting to a golf coach who I won't name, but highly respected, coached a lot of tour players, had a lot of success. He said that the reality
Jonathan Yarwood, is it?
the reality with golf coaching is that, for any great coach or good coach, a third of the players you see you will make better, a third of the players you see will get worse, and a third will just stay the same. And it's like, what other industry can you really think of that being the case? And that came from like a top coach in the world. I thought that
Can
was
you imagine being a doctor
that
saying that?
stayed with me though, because you went and saw a doctor and they're like, here's some drugs, 1/3 chance it's not going to end well for you, 1/3 chance you'll get better, 1/3 chance nothing will happen. You probably wouldn't take that medicine. But yeah, on that bombshell, good luck to everyone who's trying to improve at this game in 2024. It's bloody hard. Just remember, you've got 1/3 chance.
Just 1/3 chance. Just a final thought, Bruce. As a New Year's resolution, could you get a microphone? Do you think that's a doable thing?
Yeah. If I could be reunited with mine, that would be amazing. I'm pretty sure they're at my parents' house, aren't they?
Our equipment's all over the show. We need to get a handle on this, boys, because this is the year of taking this stuff seriously. And right now, I'm giving us a 5 out of 10. So we're gonna have to get sharper on this. Tom, you've got your last holiday of the year coming up. We wish you all the very best skiing. Key question: have you taken out some sort of key man insurance or something if something happens up those slopes? Like,
that would be the responsibility of the jar. I think
exactly.
My boss needs to take out some insurance on me.
Yeah, I think so. I'll look into that tomorrow and get that all sorted anyway.
All right, well, on that disaster, until next time.
Adios.
Watch this.